Hello and
Hello.
welcome to our first Reader's Request video. So we decided to do something a little different this month. We are asking for your questions and we are going to make a little video answering each of those questions. So we have a question that we've already picked for today. I'm going to read over it right now and then we are just going to chat about what comes up for us, what we're thinking about this question, and hopefully give you lots of great advice if you are the original writer of this question or if you're in a similar situation.
All right,
So
let's do it.
let's do it. Let me read the question first and then we will see what we think about it. Okay, so this question originally comes from a woman and she writes, can you please talk or touch on the topic of premature ejaculation in a marriage and how to talk about it? I know it's a sensitive topic. Since we've had a baby 2 years ago, sex has been bleh from the lack thereof. But when we do it, my husband orgasms so fast and I'm left with blue balls. It's gotten to the point where I don't even want to have sex because I'm left so unsatisfied and upset. We do foreplay and all that, but once we start actually having intercourse and it's feeling good, he orgasms. And he'll try to keep going, but he's soft and it doesn't feel good. It makes me really upset, so I just avoid doing it lately. Okay, so I'm glad that she says right from the beginning that she knows it's a sensitive
hmm
topic. This definitely is a very sensitive topic, especially if it's something that you've never talked about in your relationship before, which it sounds like is the case in this marriage.
Yeah.
So, do you want to give us the guy's perspective on just what it's like to have a performance issue like this?
Yeah. So this is something that probably almost every guy can empathize with, having been through at some point in time. But yeah, so this is one of those things that can be super embarrassing and really kind of like deeply emasculating. We've talked a lot in the past about sort of like societal expectations of men,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of ideas that guys are supposed to always want it, always be able to perform,
Mhm.
be able to go for as long as
The
needed.
exact right
Yeah, the
amount of
exact
time.
right. Yeah, not too
Not
short,
too
not
short, not
too
too
long.
long. Like the
Um,
Goldilocks of sex.
yeah, so that can be a big challenge because your body doesn't always operate the way you want it to. And
Mhm.
then, in addition to that, with performance issues, it can be one of those things that kind of um, turns into like a negative feedback loop. Like it happens once and you feel really embarrassed, and it can be especially embarrassing if you don't say anything, you kind of leave everything unsaid because it's
Mhm.
awkward in the moment, and then you're feeling awkward about it later, and then the next time you start having sex, it's the first thing that comes into your mind, and as soon as it comes into your
Yep.
mind, it starts to happen again, and then
Self-fulfilling
it's even more
prophecy.
embarrassing and you really don't want to say
Yeah.
anything, you try to get out of there really quick, um, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah, so I think that's something really important for women who are in a relationship with men to recognize that I know in the moment it can be really frustrating if you are just getting into it and then your partner's done. And I know in the moment, sometimes that frustration can be so intense that it can sort of feel like he's doing it on purpose. Like, does he not care? Does he not realize that I just barely got going? So I think it's really important to recognize that this is such a painful experience for so many men. It's an experience that every man is going to have multiple times in his life. It's super painful. It's really emotionally painful, not
Yeah.
physically painful. It's really difficult for them to have. And it's not like he's wanting to do this. It's not like he just doesn't care and he's trying to have an orgasm as
Yeah.
quickly as
Yeah,
possible. Like,
especially in
yeah.
this situation, it sounds like I'm making the assumption, the way that the question was worded, that it wasn't an issue. And since you've had a baby, it's become an issue. And
Hmm.
also, like, the frequency of sex sounds like it has decreased. So, like, a lot of things have changed, and this
Hmm.
is now an issue. So, I think it's pretty, like, I would imagine it's not something that she's saying is like always been a problem. It's like a new issue.
Yeah. So, what I would suggest, if you guys have never talked about this before, is to start very sensitively and to start focusing on the positive things. So, rather than saying something like, this is not lasting nearly long enough, please don't keep going while you're soft, that's obviously going to make him feel really self conscious and terrible and greatly increase the likelihood that he'll continue having issues or it'll get worse. Instead, we want to take a completely different track. And could you talk to him about what you really enjoy about intercourse? So maybe say something like, I love when we have intercourse. I feel so connected to you. It just feels like you and me in that moment. So you're giving compliments, talking about the fact that you really like it. And I would also talk about trying to prolong it a little bit in that context. Like, I love when we go really slow with each other, we take our time with each other. You know, I know life is so hectic and we don't have that much time, but when we do have this time together, I love for us to just feel like we can kind of melt into that moment. So see if you can bring it up, give him some compliments, tell him that you really enjoy this time together, and see if maybe that more subtle message might get through to him.
And I think you could also talk about things that you love about orgasm as well, but trying to keep it in the context of not like your orgasm is dependent upon intercourse. Yes. Because one of the things that can be really tough, and this kind of gets at the societal expectations that we have, is that it can be really easy to fall into that trap of assuming like, for her to orgasm, we have to be having intercourse. And I think I can kind of see that in that like assumption in this question where she's saying like, he'll try to keep going even though he's soft. I think that's a mistake a lot of guys make. They're like, okay, well, I came, I'm going to pretend that I didn't, which is a bad idea because you can't really pretend that very well. And you kind of think, oh, well, this is the only thing that we can, because we've gotten past all the other bases and we're on intercourse, like there's no going back.
That's a good
which
point.
Is totally not the case at all. But I think a lot of guys forget that, and I think a lot of women forget that,
because we're taught like this societal message that we should be orgasming during intercourse at the exact same moment. Like, that gets into our heads. So I think you're right. It's sort of two different issues here. It's letting him know in a gentle way that you would like intercourse to last longer, but it's also finding a different way to talk about and approach your orgasm. So she sort of mentions, we do the foreplay thing, but I think you could probably get a lot more enjoyment out of foreplay, where maybe you say, I would love to have an orgasm before we move on to intercourse, or I love when you make me orgasm with your hands, or when you watch me use my hands on myself. So prioritizing her orgasm a little bit more, or also like during intercourse, saying something like, what I think is really hot during intercourse, when I touch myself as you're inside of me, or you touch me, or you use a toy on me, or we take breaks from intercourse and you go down on me, or you use a toy on me, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one, because I think foreplay is kind of a misnomer. Like, the word implies that it happens before something else. But in reality, there's no reason why you can't take little breaks, or, it doesn't have to be this linear thing. Like, we go from here to here to here.
Yeah.
And you actually, go back and forth.
This idea of taking breaks in the middle of intercourse is a great way to extend intercourse too, because it gives him a chance to take a little bit of a breather, cool back down, get, further away from his orgasm, but it also gives you a chance to get more of that stimulation that you need to reach orgasm. Yeah. So I think another thing that came to me as I was reading that is, obviously talking about premature ejaculation is a really sensitive issue. We want to be super careful how we're bringing it up. But she mentions that since they had a baby 2 years ago, sex has been blah. So, and
there hasn't been very, and
not much of it.
From lack thereof.
So I think that might be a great way to introduce this, to start talking about having, just having more conversations about their sex life, is to sort of say, hey, I know the last 2 years have been pretty rough for us. We just had a baby. All of our energy is going there. We're pretty tired and exhausted and all of that. But I want to make sure that we keep prioritizing our marriage and
our sex life
and making that time and that space for each other. So you're not even, going in at him on like, you're not lasting long enough. It's more like this kind of teamwork conversation about, hey, our life is crazy. We got a kid and all this, but how do we keep working on our sex life so that it feels really great?
Yeah. Because like, I can also see a completely alternate scenario where he could be thinking like, okay, we had a baby, the time that we're like together, we're having sex is like time away from the baby. Like, we don't have very much time. Things are really busy. We want to oh, she's just doing this for my sake. Like, I'm trying to be really quick.
So he might be thinking he's actually doing her a favor by making it quick.
Yeah. I think that's why it's important to have that conversation about like, just kind of re-emphasizing the importance of your sex life and what it is you're trying to get out of it, because it is totally possible that he maybe just got the wrong idea, right after having, I know like a lot of men talk about immediately after having a baby for the first time, like when do you start having sex again, and it feeling like
Mhm.
something that he really wants but she's not ready for.
Yeah.
And so I can see a scenario where kind of ease back into starting to have sex, and you as the man are feeling like, oh well, she doesn't really want this, she's just like doing
Mhm.
this for me. And so then you start being like, okay, well, I'll just try to be really quick. And if
Yeah.
you've never talked about it before and you just kind of leave it unsaid, he might be thinking, oh well, she didn't say anything, so this must really be what she wants. I could see
Mhm.
it going, but like that's just what happens if you don't,
If you don't
when you
talk
don't
about
talk
it,
about
you
things.
make
Yeah, you start
assumptions.
to make assumptions. And
Mhm.
so like he's making assumptions each time it happens that reinforce
Yeah.
themselves, reinforce the assumption. And then she may be making the same thing each time, where it's like, oh, I'm not getting what I want, he's not giving me what I want, he must not care. So I
Mhm.
can see it just on both sides, they're kind of just going in totally opposite directions
Absolutely. Yeah.
unknowingly, and they don't even want, like, they really do want to be on the same team.
Yeah, this happens so often where because a couple is not talking about it, they each have these different assumptions, different stories in their head, and they just keep plowing along down the road with their story. And you're growing, the stories are going further and further apart. So we know that it's really hard to talk about sex. We've struggled with this in our own marriage, but we've also seen it time and time again in our relationship, in countless other relationships, that when you talk about what's really going on between the two of you, it just opens up so much space for change.
Yeah.
So that's definitely having a conversation about it in a really gentle, loving way, recognizing that you're both probably doing your best for each other and trying to show up for each other. I think that is the ticket to getting back into a good place with your sex life. Okay, well, we hope that this has helped. Please feel free to shoot us a question if you want us to answer your question in our next Reader's Request video.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.